Hello and welcome to this episode of Get a Shift On. I'm really pleased you could join me on this week's episode, and I really appreciate your time in listening to this podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please do hit subscribe and like and share it with anyone that you think would be relevant. It means a great deal to me, especially as I'm growing and I want to help as many people as possible. In this episode, there is no guest, so it is just me, and I wanted to speak to you about the paths to changing career. I believe there are 5 of them, and in this episode, I will go into detail with each of these paths, and I really look forward to hearing your feedback and thoughts. So please do leave a comment, and I will answer them all. My mission with this podcast, and indeed being Nova, is to help people close the gap between wanting to leave a career and actually taking the action to do it. That can be really hard, and having been there myself, I know how tricky it can be to be in a role or a career doesn't feel quite right. Changing careers is one of the biggest decisions a person can make. Whether it's driven by frustration, redundancy, or the desire for something new, it can be daunting, but you're not alone. And millions of people take that leap every year. According to a global survey by LinkedIn, nearly 50% of professionals have made a significant career change at some point in their working lives. The paths that I will discuss are not rigid or mutually exclusive. They often overlap or run in parallel. You might explore a side hustle while on a career break, quit because you already have a fallback plan, or take a break before transitioning out of a long-term career. Career changes are rarely a straight line, and they involve a shift and sometimes combine in unexpected ways. So what are those 5 paths? 1, the side hustle. 2, the career break. 3, redundancy. 4, end of an era. And 5, quitting. This episode will explore these common paths to change careers with real life examples, key challenges, and practical steps to navigate them successfully. So let's get straight in and start with the side hustle. If you're stuck in your current job but aren't sure if making a drastic change is financially viable, you may have interests outside of work or a side hustle already, but taking it full time feels really risky. The problem is balancing a side hustle with a full-time job is exhausting. There's also the uncertainty. Can this really become a sustainable career? If you're making a move into something completely different, let's say you're in the medical profession and you want to become a florist, the challenges are multiple, and breaking into a new industry without losing income can be really, really tough. So what's the solution? Test the waters. Treat your side hustle like an experiment and validate demand before jumping ship. You can try and leverage your existing network. Do your friends or family have an event that may need flowers, a wedding perhaps? Then ask them if you can help, in return for a great reduced fee. And of course, and don't forget, the crucial review and testimony. To manage that transition, make sure that you set financial targets. Make sure you know your numbers and what you need to do to be able to quit. I would aim to cover at least 75% of your current salary before going full time. Use your network. Seek out people who have successfully transitioned and ask for their help and advice. Experiment with pricing. Start small in a few test cases and then start to increase the prices. This can really help validate demand before making that final and crucial leap. Let's have a quick look at a case study. If you saw or listened to my podcast last week, you would have seen Karen, who was a full-time teacher. She ran her tutoring business as a side hustle. And she explained in the podcast that she was ultimately earning more from her 3 days tutoring than she was from the 2 days full-time teacher. This shows the power of a side hustle when managed and created with an open mind. So how do we move forward, and what are the further options? Take some relevant courses to build credibility. There are many free courses online. Seek mentorship from those in the new industry that you are looking at. They will be willing to help. Use freelancing platforms or opportunities to gain experience before fully committing. Number 2, think with a career break. You're burnt out, uninspired, or unsure what you really want to do next. The thought of carrying on in your current role is just unbearable. But jumping into something new without clarity feels reckless. The problem is a career break sounds appealing, but financial concerns and social expectations can make it difficult. Will a gap in your CV hurt your prospects? Will you regret stepping away? Will your company even entertain the fact? Is it something that they offer? The solution: I'm very much a don't ask, don't get kind of person. So it is worth asking your company if they offer a career break. Many will, some might not, but it is worth asking. Often they'll give it to you, hoping that a break will prevent the loss of an employee. And this may or may not be the case, depending on what happens down the line with you. A well-planned break can give you the time to reflect, upskill, and reset. Approach it with strategy, rather than treating it as aimless time off. It could be a chance to grow that side hustle. How do you manage the transition? Budget wisely. Plan your finances to avoid unnecessary stress. This will, of course, depend on the terms of your career break. Use the time intentionally. It is an ideal time to take a course, make relevant connections, or work on growing and developing a business. Set a return date. This may change, but it will undoubtedly be part of the career break, and it will avoid drifting and thinking of it as a holiday. As a case study again, if we look at Karen, whose career journey actually started when she took a career break, her friend knew that she was on a break and asked if she could do some tutoring for her friend's son. And it snowballed from there. More and more people asked. A plan started to form, and the rest, well, is clear to see in her fantastic tutoring business. Have a listen to the last episode of the podcast. Moving forward, consider a career break if quitting isn't an option, and it is possible to do. Freelance, consult, or start your side hustle during this break to maintain that income. Use the time to build valuable skills and learn as much as you can ready for your next role. Third is redundancy, a chance to reboot. I think this can be seen as two categories: voluntary and forced. Whichever, losing your job, whether expected or not, can be emotionally and financially stressful. I do, however, believe voluntary redundancy may be taken by those that are already looking for a way out. They may already have a side hustle and the timing isn't just right. Redundancy helps that. If redundancy is forced, the immediate concern, and rightly so, is financial survival. There may be a reasonable payout, and you are acutely aware that this is not an endless pot. If it's voluntary, there will still be a pot, but you may already have that plan that lessens some of that financial worry. The solution, therefore, whichever route you find yourself in, is to view redundancy as an opportunity rather than a setback. It is crucial to keep positive in order to keep moving forward. If it's forced, focus on financial stability first. Set out that plan so you know exactly how long the money will last, and this is as good a time as any to reassess your home budget. For those of my clients on the personal exit plan, one of the initial steps that we look at is the financial budgeting and planning, and look at what you may be able to give up. Redundancy may be the best way to give up that daily coffee. If it's voluntary, the pressures may well still be the same and budgets will need to be looked at. But as mentioned, it is an opportunity to pivot into something more fulfilling, which has already begun. Again, let's look at the management of that transition. So understand your rights. Redundancy packages and support vary. So it's key to make sure that you have independent advice, and this will help maximize your entitlement and indeed how long you may have to work on a new plan. And take time to plan. Don't rush into the first job out of fear. This is particularly important if you've already been thinking about making a career change. You don't have to give up an opportunity if you fall into another job. Don't forget, it may be as unhappy as the previous one. Do upskill and network. Use redundancy as a stepping stone. And as with the other steps, this is an absolute ideal opportunity to reach out to your network for help and advice, as well as take the opportunity to carry out some learning and training. As a case study here, I actually want to use me. Many years ago, I was made redundant. It was the first time that I actually started to explore self-employment. I'd been unhappy for a while and I wanted to do something. I had a little bit of funding behind me, but more than that, I had the desire and drive to want to do my own thing. Although being made redundant was not a surprise, it did come out of the blue. But I was very much in the camp of wanting to change and do something else. And I was able to take that step positively, take the cash, and I started my first business, hiring bouncy castles for children's parties. I loved it. It was great. Moving forward, explore retraining or new qualifications. You may be able to use some of your redundancy money for this purpose. Although, as I said, there are plenty of free courses as well. Consider interim work or contracting. This could be within the same industry and may extend the time you have to explore your new career. Leverage redundancy pay to start a business. There are so many business opportunities out there, many of which have low cost entry point and as such would not affect too much the money you may receive from redundancy, and it will still last. Number 4 then, end of an era. This is particularly pertinent where your career has defined you or has been a large part of life to date. Prime example here are pro athletes, those in the military or public services, whose careers have started at a young age. These careers are all too soon over, either due to retirement, which for a pro sports player might be in their late 20s or early 30s. It may be due to injury. What you've worked so hard for is suddenly no longer part of your everyday life through no fault of your own. The problem with this, and when your identity, rightly or wrongly, is tied to a career move, you can feel as if you are losing part of yourself. Many former professionals struggle to find their next purpose, although the experience they have had and the skills they have learned are a fantastic opportunity to move forward. There are indeed so many opportunities, whichever background they may come from. The solution in this scenario is that previous skills learnt and acquired are considered and looked at in depth. These skills and experiences are so valuable, just in a different way, and may need bringing to the surface. When we work in a career, it's so easy to overlook those skills that we use on a daily basis. So, how do we manage that transition? Really, it's a shift in mindset from career identity to transferable skills. I'm not a big fan of pigeonholing people by their careers. However, if you play a professional sport or your adult life, this is hard not to do. As with other steps, seek guidance. Mentors and others who have followed a similar path are a great place to start. I know as well that the military offer fantastic packages to retrain. You could explore advisory roles. You undoubtedly will have a wealth of information, and as such, consulting, mentoring, or coaching would be a great opportunity. As a case study here, there are several specifics I could use, but I have a future guest who fits into this category, and I want to save that for another time, a sportsman. But let's imagine, if you will, a career soldier. They join the army at a young age and have served for many years across all continents and in many different scenarios. They have learned to drive tanks and fuel lorries, lead troops into conflicts, supported colleagues through the most horrific of times, now have had desk jobs. They plan works, deliver courses, and assess quality. I will let you unpick the vast array of transferable skills in that. As these people move forward, they need to consider coaching or advisory positions. The chances are they are natural leaders and inspiring. They should look for roles that value experience over youth, and I can tell you that so many companies are actively recruiting from these fields. And of course, explore entrepreneurship. Like all these exit paths, maybe they've already had a side hustle or a keen interest in something. They will certainly have the skills required. Last, but absolutely not least, quitting. Quite simply, you've had enough. You can't stay in your job another day and you just need out. It may be affecting your health, the relationships you have with others, and in general making you feel pretty bad. But quitting can be absolutely terrifying. The problem is, quitting is drastic. Quitting can seem reckless. Quitting will certainly raise some eyebrows. I'm actually in two minds here. So I think there's a cautionary tale to be had, and I would consider the following carefully. Number one, quitting without a plan is hardcore. That said, the worry and fear of no money to pay the bills may be all the drive you need to quit and start again ASAP. Two, having some kind of plan This is probably the more moderate approach, if there can be such a thing when you quit your job. In either case, without financial security or backup plan, quitting can easily turn into a crisis, leading to fear and regret. This will be no good for your health, which, as I said, may have already been affected. The solution: very few people will go to work one day, happy, and then decide to quit there and then. I'm sure it has happened, and I think we've all dreamt about it, just telling your boss, I quit. But if you must quit immediately, tomorrow or next week, have a short-term plan in place. Ideally, try to line up opportunities before walking away. It will make it much easier to work through the coming weeks. Build some financial reserves. If possible, build this up before quitting. Go back to your numbers and work out how much you might need. Unhappiness is a good driver for saving. Be clear on your reasons. Avoid impulsive decisions and don't quit just because it's Monday morning and you hate it. Have a conversation with someone close to you. Although, don't forget, they can easily project their fear onto you. Use your notice period wisely. Start networking and planning what you may do next. As I've said all the way through this, you may have a side hustle, so you could start working really hard on that. Case study wise, I'm going to use me again. I'd been headhunted to do a job in a well-known healthcare company in a well-known healthcare street in London. I'm sure you can guess where. As a younger man, it was the ideal opportunity, and why would I say no to such a job? It soon became apparent, however, that this was not the dream I had imagined. In fact, it was a nightmare. I had chest pain, palpitations, and the commute to work was full of fear and dread. After some months, enough was enough, and I left. Only half a plan in place, mind you, but there was a glimmer of a plan. I would go back to working clinically, and it was then that I moved from London to Devon, a decision that I do not regret. This is now my home, and 12 years later, I am where I am because I quit. Moving forward, have a plan of some description in place. It may not go to plan, but it is better than none. Consider temporary work while planning your next move. If you're set on a change, any chance to make some extra money will be taken. Again, network. Use all the avenues open to you to help you find the next role or career. LinkedIn is, of course, a great and fantastic platform for this. So here are my closing thoughts. Career change happens. It can be messy. It can be unpredictable. And at times, it can be very uncomfortable. But don't forget, it is also an opportunity to create a life that truly fits you. The chances are a new career or venture has probably been on the horizon for some time, and this isn't the first thought you've had about it. No matter which path you take, the key is to be intentional, adaptable, and proactive. And above all, take action. If you're not taking action, then you're not moving forward. Take the tiny steps that lead to massive change. It has taken me several years to truly understand myself and my purpose, and that is why I've used myself in some of the examples in this episode, in order to help illustrate that it really is possible to have a successful career change. Like I said at the beginning, it is my mission to help you close the gap between thinking about your change in career and actually doing it. Whichever of these paths is most relevant to you, it is the starting point to the next exciting chapter. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you and appreciate your time. Please do leave some comments and thoughts, and also do share this episode with anyone who you think needs to know their path to career change. Thanks again, and thank you for listening to Get a Shift On.